Hi everyone! If you're new here, I'm working on a space exploration game centered around time dilation. I'm in the early stages of constructing a miniature solar system, the first of many. Last time we got a basic character and a camera set up, a planet with gravity, and a simple starry background. The next thing I want to work on is turning this bland, colorless marble into a pretty planet. The first thing I want to do is replace this default sphere with something that fits our needs a little better. If you look, you can see that all the geometry bunches up at the poles, and that's going to cause issues when we start moving the vertices around and trying to create terrain. There's several different geometries we can use for a sphere, and I've decided to go with the cube sphere. You get this by taking a subdivided cube and then inflating it into a ball. The advantages here are that the vertices aren't all bunched up at the poles, and I can easily apply cube map textures without having to make any adjustments. I found this panoramic image of the Earth online, and using a converter, I was able to turn it into a cube map. And just like that, the new sphere serves as a drop-in replacement for what I've been using. And just as soon as I've added the new texture, it's time to throw it in the trash, because now it's time to dive into the world of procedural generation. I decided the best way to go about this would be to use a spatial shader. If you already see the problem with this, stay tuned. So my goal is to automatically generate some hills and valleys on the surface of my planet. The standard approach to this is to take some pseudo-random noise, like Perlin noise, and if we have a flat Earth, as is the case with most games, we can take a texture like this one and apply it to the ground. By raising the white areas and lowering the black, we get what we're looking for. The problem in this case is that we don't have a flat Earth, so now we're dealing with the problem of seamlessly wrapping our spherical planet using a 2D noise texture. The options we have for this are take the output of Godot's built-in noise textures and transform them into a panoramic image or a cube map, or create my own noise generator that generates noise seamlessly as a panoramic image or a cube map. The answer, of course, is hidden option C. Godot also has built-in 3D noise textures, so rather than being like a sheet covered in white spots that you apply to a 2D plane, you have a field of white blobs with a sphere, the planet, embedded within it. Wherever the sphere intersects with the blobs, we move that point outward away from the sphere's center. Wherever the sphere doesn't intersect with the blobs, we move that point toward the center of the sphere. And that gives us the hills and valleys we're looking for. That looks okay, but we don't want just a complete blob of hills and valleys. We would like to have some flat midlands too. So I add some smoothing so that only the lightest areas of the noise become hills and only the darkest areas become valleys. This looks better, but what I'd actually really like to see is something like continents and oceans. So I start from scratch with a new shader, this one just for continents. I use the same technique as I did for hills and valleys, but instead of raising the land by an amount that's proportional to how dark or light the noise is, I raise or lower it by a fixed amount, so long as it meets a threshold for lightness or darkness, and then interpolate from the low areas to the high areas to smooth out that transition. Now I also take those same values and assign them to colors to get a nice transition between land and water. This is starting to look pretty nice. As a finishing touch, I'd like to fill in the oceans with water. So for that, I'm going to start with a sphere and apply a new shader. For this shader, I'm going to use cellular noise, also known as Voronoi noise. This type of noise creates these really nice sections with hard lines dividing them. Using this, we can get a water surface that looks similar to the oceans in Wind Waker. I don't know yet if this is the art direction I want for the game, but for now, I'm just sort of going with things and seeing where they lead me. Since we're applying this to a sphere, we're using 3D noise texture like before. We make the hard edges white and the interior of the cells blue. We also lower the opacity to make the water somewhat transparent. And I really couldn't be happier with that. I think that looks gorgeous. And now I just want to get it moving. Going back to how these shaders work, we have these blobs in space, the noise, with an embedded sphere. We sample the space by sampling points on the surface of the sphere to determine what gets displayed. So to get the effect of moving water, all we have to do is take the sphere and move it around within this space. If we move it too regularly, like only up and down or side to side, we get water that looks like it's flowing back and forth across the entire planet. And it doesn't look very good from a distance. What I do to get around this is move the sphere up, down, left, right, forward, and backward, all at different rates. So the water's always changing directions unpredictably. Overall, this looks a lot better, and most importantly, it looks good enough. Now, I think my planet looks beautiful. Our only problem is, I can't stand on it. The shader changes the location of the vertices, but only on the GPU. The collision isn't updated, so now I just need to update the vertices on the collision mesh to match the vertices on the visual mesh. And this is where I found out the mistake I'd made. I had just assumed there would be a way to retrieve the vertex data from the shader, but there wasn't, and so I needed a new way to generate my planets. One that would allow me to generate the collision mesh and also feed that same data into the shader to draw on the GPU. I came up with a bit of a cumbersome workflow where I would generate, in plain old GD script, a 2D height map representing the planet's surface. Save it as a texture, then use that to generate the vertex data at runtime. This was a lot easier said than done though, so I'm gonna leave that for the next video. If you like this, be sure to like and subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of future content. Until next time, I'm out!